Do you ever catch yourself replaying a conversation you had yesterday or worrying about something that might happen tomorrow, only to realize that you're not really living in the moment you're in right now? Maybe you're sitting at dinner, but instead of tasting your food, your mind is stuck on an unfinished email. Or you're walking outside, but instead of noticing the air or the sky, you're imagining what could go wrong in the future. If this feels familiar, you're not alone. In fact, neuroscience suggests that your brain is almost never fully in the present. The now that you think you're living in is less of a reality and more of an illusion, a thin thread your brain uses to connect what already happened with what might come next. In this video, we're going to explore why your mind is wired this way, why time feels so slippery, and how philosophy and psychology can help you live more consciously, even if you can't escape the illusions of time. Let's start with something surprising. The present moment, the now, doesn't actually exist in the way you think it does. Your brain works with delays. When light hits your eyes or sound waves reach your ears, it takes milliseconds for your brain to process that information. To make sense of it, the brain actually stitches these fragments together and smooths over the delay, giving you the impression that you are experiencing life in real time. But in reality, you are always living a fraction of a second in the past. This is why some scientists argue that the present is less of a point in time and more like a moving window, your brain's best guess at keeping continuity. Now, here's where it gets even stranger. Your brain isn't just replaying the past, it's constantly predicting the future. Every time you see, hear, or feel something, your brain is already anticipating what comes next. If you're listening to music, your brain is predicting the next beat. If you're watching someone talk, your brain is guessing the next word or gesture before it happens. Psychologists call this predictive processing. It means that the now you experience is really a mix of remembered past and expected future, blended so seamlessly that it feels like a single moment. In other words, your brain is less of a passive camera recording reality and more like a film editor, cutting and stitching frames together to create the illusion of a continuous movie. But why does your mind work like this? From an evolutionary perspective, it's about survival. If your brain only reacted to the past, you would always be too late. Imagine walking through a forest. If you only processed the rustle in the bushes after it happened, you'd already be in danger. By predicting, your brain can prepare you to act before the threat fully emerges. In modern life, this mechanism doesn't just apply to predators, it applies to everything. Your brain constantly runs simulations about how your boss might respond to your email, how your partner might react to your words, or how traffic might be tomorrow. This gives you a sense of control, but it also means you rarely live in the pure present. Here's a simple analogy. Think of your brain like Google Maps. When you enter a destination, the app doesn't just show you where you are right now. It projects forward, estimating your route, your arrival time, and possible obstacles. You don't stare at your current location. You're always looking at where you're heading. That's what your brain is doing all the time. It is less focused on here and more focused on what's next. But this has a cost. The cost is that you often feel like life is slipping past you. You wake up, go through routines, and suddenly it's evening and you wonder where the day went. That's because your brain wasn't fully present. It was rehearsing, simulating, or rehashing. You were physically in the moment, but mentally elsewhere. Philosophers have wrestled with this illusion of time for centuries. Augustine of Hippo, a 4th century thinker, famously said, "What then is time? If no one asks me, I know. If I wish to explain it, I do not know." He noticed that the past no longer exists, the future doesn't exist yet, and the present, by the time you think of it, is already gone. So what is real? For him, time was more about human consciousness than about the external world. Fast forward to modern existentialists like Martin Heidegger, who argued that human beings are beings toward the future. We are defined not just by what we are now, but by the projects, plans, and possibilities that lie ahead. From this view, the present is always infused with a sense of anticipation. Even when you think you are in the moment, part of you is leaning forward into what comes next. Neuroscience today confirms this intuition. Studies with brain imaging show that when people think about the past and when they imagine the future, the same neural networks light up. Your brain doesn't separate memory and imagination. It uses the same circuits for both. That means remembering yesterday and imagining tomorrow are biologically similar acts. So when you dwell on the past or project into the future, your brain is using the same storytelling machinery. And the present moment? It's the thin overlap, the transition space, like the split-second frame between two film reels. This helps explain why being in the now feels so difficult. Your brain isn't built to freeze-frame reality, it's built to flow. Now, this may sound discouraging, like you can never really live in the present. But here's the shift I want you to consider. The goal is not to eliminate the brain's time-traveling tendencies. You can't. The goal is to use them consciously, so they serve you instead of draining you. Let's unpack this with some practical tools. First, let's talk about awareness. The simple act of noticing that your brain is projecting or replaying is powerful. For example, if you find yourself lost in worry about tomorrow, you can say, "This is my brain simulating possibilities." Or if you're stuck in regret about yesterday, you can say, "This is my brain rehearsing memories." By labeling the process, you create distance. Instead of being inside the movie, you become the audience watching it. Second, you can practice grounding techniques to anchor yourself, even briefly, in sensory experience. Try this exercise. Pause and notice 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. This simple scan interrupts the mental time travel and reminds you that there is, at least temporarily, a body here in the present. Another practical step is to redefine what living in the moment means. It doesn't mean shutting off all thoughts of past or future. That's impossible. It means learning to engage with them intentionally. For instance, instead of passively worrying about the future, you can actively plan. Instead of endlessly replaying the past, you can deliberately reflect on it to extract lessons. The shift is from being carried away to being in dialogue with your mind's narratives. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine standing by a river. The water flows constantly, representing time. You can't stop the current, but you can decide whether to be swept away by it or to step onto a rock and watch it pass. Practicing awareness and reflection is like stepping onto that rock. You're still in the flow of time, but you've created a stable point from which to see it more clearly. There's also an emotional side to this. Many of the anxieties we feel come from confusing the simulated future with reality. Your brain predicts an outcome, like, "I'll embarrass myself at the meeting," and your body reacts as if it's already happening. This is why worry feels so real. But if you recognize that it's just a simulation, you can challenge it. This hasn't happened yet. It's only one possible version. The same goes for nostalgia or regret. Your brain replays a past event, but it's not a neutral replay. It edits the memory, adding emphasis, colors, and feelings, often distorting what really happened. Realizing this helps you hold the memory more lightly instead of treating it as a fixed truth. So what does all this mean for living more consciously? It means that instead of chasing a perfect present moment, you can aim for presence. Presence is less about freezing time and more about showing up with awareness, even if your mind is moving between past and future. For example, if you're having dinner with a friend, presence isn't about silencing every thought of tomorrow. It's about choosing to place attention on the conversation, the taste of food, the sound of laughter, rather than drifting unconsciously into unrelated worries. This choice transforms ordinary moments into meaningful ones. It's also helpful to think of the brain's illusions of time as tools you can use. If your brain is going to simulate the future anyway, why not direct it toward constructive visions? Athletes use visualization to rehearse success. You can do the same. Imagine how you want tomorrow's meeting to go, not to predict it perfectly, but to prime your brain to act with confidence. Similarly, when reflecting on the past, instead of replaying mistakes, you can frame them as data for growth. The past and future stop being traps and become resources. All of this points to a deeper truth. The present moment may be an illusion, but your relationship to it is real. You may not be able to capture now in a pure form, but you can choose how you engage with the flow of time. This is where philosophy meets psychology, not in denying illusions, but in learning to live wisely within them. In the second part of this video, we'll explore how different philosophical traditions, from Buddhism to Stoicism to modern cognitive science, offer strategies to reconcile with the fleeting nature of time and to practice awareness in a world where the now is always slipping away. More importantly, we'll discuss how you can integrate these insights into daily routines so that time stops feeling like something that controls you and starts feeling like something you can work with consciously. Think of your own daily life. How often do you actually experience the present moment directly, without immediately labeling it, anticipating the next thing, or dragging in a memory of something similar? Neuroscientists suggest it's rare because your brain is constantly compressing, filtering, and stitching together fragments of experience. This is why a car ride you've taken 100 times can feel like it disappears from memory. Your brain simply predicts most of it and fills in the gaps. The present, in this sense, is less like a vivid painting and more like a quick sketch that gets overwritten almost instantly by what comes before and after. This creates a strange paradox. You crave to live in the now, but your brain is wired to dilute the now into stories of then and next. It makes sense when you think about survival. A brain that only noticed the present moment without anticipating the future or remembering the past would be vulnerable. But a brain that lives mostly in prediction and memory risks never fully inhabiting reality as it is. This tension is at the core of our relationship with time. The present is never stable. It flickers, like a frame in a film strip, existing only as a transition between what was and what will be. That's why philosophers have called the present a knife edge. Augustine once said, "What is time? If no one asks me, I know. If I wish to explain it to him who asks, I know not." The human mind has always wrestled with this. The more you try to grasp the present, the more it slips through your fingers. And yet, the longing to be present is universal. So how can you reconcile the brain's time-bending tendencies with your desire to live more consciously? One key step is to notice the mechanics of how your brain does this. Psychologists talk about something called mental time travel. You might be washing dishes, but your brain is rehearsing tomorrow's meeting or replaying yesterday's argument. Both of these are adaptive functions, planning and learning, but they hijack your awareness. You become so used to your mind's time travel that you barely notice it's happening. And here's where mindfulness comes in. Mindfulness isn't about shutting down memory or anticipation. It's about noticing when your brain has drifted and gently returning to what's right in front of you. That might mean feeling the warmth of the dishwater, the texture of the plate, the rhythm of your breathing. The act of noticing is what anchors you, even if only for a few seconds, in the fleeting frame of now. Another way to understand this is through the lens of prediction error. Your brain is always generating expectations about what will happen next, and then adjusting them when reality surprises you. This is why novelty feels so vivid. When something unexpected happens, your brain has to pay attention to the present moment because its prediction failed. That's why your first day in a new city feels long and full of details, while your 10th day passes in a blur. Your sense of time expands when you're present with novelty, and it contracts when you're on autopilot. You can use this to your advantage. If you want to feel more present, deliberately introduce small doses of novelty into your life. Take a new route home, cook a dish you've never tried, or sit in silence instead of reaching for your phone. These interruptions force your brain to recalibrate, and for a moment you're brought back into the immediacy of experience. Another tool is reframing how you relate to the past and future. Instead of seeing them as distractions, see them as tools. Memory gives you wisdom, the future gives you direction, but both should serve the present, not replace it. You can ask yourself, am I remembering to learn or am I replaying to suffer? Am I anticipating to prepare or am I worrying to escape this moment? By clarifying the function of your thoughts, you bring them back under conscious use. Philosophically, this aligns with the teachings of Stoicism and Buddhism alike. The Stoics reminded us that the only time we truly control is the present. Past and future are outside of our reach. Buddhists teach that clinging to past or future is the root of suffering, and that freedom comes from resting in awareness of the moment as it is. Neuroscience and philosophy converge here. Both suggest that peace comes not from erasing time, but from rebalancing your relationship with it. On a practical level, you can train yourself to live closer to the present through micro-practices. One is the pause before prediction. Before jumping ahead in your mind, take a breath and ask, what is actually here right now? Another is sensory grounding. Notice 5 things you can see, 4 you can touch, 3 you can hear, 2 you can smell, 1 you can taste. It's simple, but it tricks your predictive brain into registering raw data instead of running simulations. You can also try what some psychologists call temporal reframing. If you're caught in anxiety about the future, imagine zooming out to a much larger timeline. Will this worry matter in a month, a year, a decade? Often this distance makes the present stress shrink in proportion, allowing you to re-enter the moment with more perspective. But here's the deeper insight. You don't need to treat the brain's time bending as a flaw. Instead, see it as a feature to be guided. Memory and prediction are what make you human. They allow you to write stories, create art, and plan futures that don't yet exist. The key is to avoid mistaking those stories for reality itself. When you remember that the present is always the stage where past and future intersect, you can step into it more consciously. You may never be able to live in the present perfectly, because your brain will always drift. But you can learn to return to it more often. And each return is like touching base with life itself. To make this real, try a simple practice today. Choose one ordinary activity, drinking tea, walking outside, brushing your teeth, and do it with full attention. Notice when your mind wanders to yesterday or tomorrow and gently bring it back. This isn't about forcing silence, it's about strengthening the muscle of presence. Over time, you may find that your sense of time slows down, your days feel fuller, and your life feels more your own. The illusion of time doesn't have to control you. It can become a reminder that all of your memories and all of your plans only matter if you inhabit the one place they converge, this very moment. And that's where the power lies. If this idea shifted something for you, share it with someone who also feels caught between past regrets and future worries. Like this video to remind yourself of its message, and subscribe to Mind Unlocked for more tools to help you think clearly, live consciously, and grow with purpose. After all, this channel is your toolkit for better thinking. And sometimes the most radical clarity comes not from chasing more time, but from realizing that the only time you ever truly touch is now.